Good morning. It's a pleasure to be back once again. I kind of thank God every day that I'm alive and I'm here and I'm able to talk to so many. Not the millions that I see accumulate on the misinformation sites. I can't believe it. 12 folks across all the social media platforms have 59 million viewers. That's mind-boggling to me. 59 million viewers to listen to information that impacts our lives in a negative way. When here at the Voice of Joyce, when I'm speaking, I'm lucky to get a couple of thousand and have a couple of thousand across all my platforms. And I only give you the facts as they are. Why are facts so hard to accept? And why does misinformation, which is destroying our country, have so many views? Let's start with the facts. In 1918, when the Spanish flu finally started to circle the world, was probably started in Europe on the battlefields that had been once part of World War I. When the guys came home, they probably brought the Spanish flu with them. That flu circled the globe for 3 years. There were no vaccines. 50 million people died. Now, we're fortunate. We've got vaccines. The mRNA platform is not a new platform at all. Scientists have been working on it for over 20 years. The fact that it's an EUA, really it shouldn't be. It's already been dispensed acceptably to 2 billion people across the globe. And so many more need it. It's a pity misinformation has its foothold in America. It is destroying us. Let me speak about the Delta variant. It's a COVID mutation that is affecting the unvaccinated now. It's affecting the vaccinated who are in their 20s to 30s, and it's affecting those in their 70s and the immunosuppressed. Like all COVID strains, this one may be asymptomatic to many. However, what makes it so incredibly contagious is that in 4 days of being in contact with someone who has the Delta variant, you too could come down with it. So testing on a weekly basis, that's not sufficient. You gotta have the vaccine. And how is this different from the original COVID that we saw way back in November of 2019? It transmits quicker. Instead of you getting infected and perhaps infecting 1 or 2 others, now if you're infected, you can cause the infection in 6 other individuals. That's why it's swamping all the nations. We're already up to over 60,000 cases of COVID in our midst. Many of our cities and our states who have espoused don't get vaccinated, their hospitals are becoming overwhelmed. So why not get the vaccine? There's not a good reason. We see with our naked eyes what happens to folks when they're not vaccinated. And it's a pity that they have the freedom to then harm the rest of us. We're not at a vaccine mandate yet, but I surely believe that the entire globe should be doing that. It's important. We don't want to live our lives afraid to go out again, afraid to dine in restaurants again. For those of us who don't really have access to the outdoors, but do have access to culture, we're scared to be in large crowds who are unvaccinated, or who may be vaccinated and have not been cautious and have had lunch or dinner or had a family member who was unvaccinated and then could possibly transmit it to us. For New York City, masking is in, just like it is in the Asian countries. We're not going away without having a mask and being cautious and saving our lives. To stop the virus, we actually have a remedy. We've got the vaccines. They're effective. 50 million people died with the Spanish flu. Well, it's a real possibility with COVID. But why let the outbreaks continue when we have the remedy, a vaccine? And now we should be looking at other vaccines for other pandemics that are coming down the pike. As our permafrost dissolves and we're releasing more carbon into the air, we don't know what microbes are going to be released with the permafrost or with the melting ice. Microbes that have been undercover for thousands and millions of years are going to reappear. Do we want that? And we're not prepared for that either. And certainly, I don't see my old age as being one of isolation. I want to go out. I want to eat out with friends. I want to go to theater and movies and concerts. That's why I live in the big city. I don't pretend to be totally an outdoor person, though I love it. And I've seen our national parks when I was young and used to crisscross our country by automobile and go to places like Glen Canyon, which is no more. That's Lake Powell. And go to the Grand Canyon and Bryan and Zion. That was a wonderful experience. Yosemite, Yellowstone, Jenny Lake, White Sands, New Mexico. Our country is magnificent. When Mark Twain went abroad and saw Lake Como, when he came back to America, he said, "Who needs Lake Como when we have Tahoe here in America?" So we're known for our terrain, our national parks, our memorials, our monuments, our forts. And we should be proud of that heritage and want to pass it on to our children and our grandchildren. That's another thing we don't need myths about or misinformation. What's happening across the globe in terms of climate catastrophe? Flooding subways? Not just happening here. It's happening in China. It's happening in London. It's happening all over. Desert fires? Not happening just in the West, the Southwest, Northwest. No, it's happening in Canada. It's happening also in China. It's happening on a global level. The same with the floods. Floods, look what happened to Germany. However, the German people are waking up. They don't want to live with a country that's going to disintegrate anymore. They're actually looking to the Green Party, which is becoming ascendant in Germany, and Merkel's party once again. The extremes? No, they don't have a place in Germany. Germans have woken up with the last flood. And that's what we need to do here, folks. We need to wake up and embrace our technology and our sciences and admit that we've been in a slumber because we've suffered so much trauma in the last couple of years, not only during the pandemic, but pre-pandemic as well, as we were building under harsh conditions and really hurting the people who were in construction. Now we've got to take a look and see, what are we doing? Where are we going? And where do we want to be in a couple of years? I know for me, that's a no-brainer. I want to make sure that my kids and my grandchildren have a world where they can go out every single day. I'm now stuck in the house when the weather goes to 90 degrees, and it's unhealthy for older people to be out. And in New York, we've got high humidity to boot, which makes it a disaster for me because I love the cold. So we can see what's happening. We don't need to listen to misinformation. We know if you don't take the vaccine, sooner or later, COVID's going to get you, and it may get 6 other people as well. We now know that if we continue to burn carbon at the rate we're burning carbon, for every 3 of us, we kill 1 other person in the globe. Can you imagine feeling responsible for 100 million folks? There's already 100 million in diaspora because of climate crisis. So we can't afford to close our eyes to the truth, to the facts, to what we see. We know there's going to be disruptions in the supply chain. Just keep going on the way we're going on. Who can work in 115-degree weather? Nobody can. It's inhumane to expect it. And then how will we have crops? How will we have food? The salmon are being injured in the Northwest. I happen to love salmon. Bears do too. Are we going to kill off all of our food supply and still expect to live? Are we going to drain our reservoirs and still expect that we're going to have water at that tap that's clean and not polluted? We don't have time for culture wars, for identity crises, and for not being vaccinated. We need a healthy population to go back to work and do things perhaps a little differently. But we're a productive nation. It bothers me when outsiders criticize what's become of America. Just like a firm parent who can criticize her children, but woe unto others who criticize them. I know if my mother knew somebody was going to complain about me or my sister, she didn't talk to them ever again. That was it. She just cut them out. If she had photographs of them, she might have cut out their photographs too. You know, internal talking about each other was one thing. Anyone from the outside, forget about it. That was not allowed. So we're thought of as the world leader, and I don't want anyone to think about us as what happened We were so great in research and technology, in encouraging entrepreneurship, in encouraging research and development. I don't like to read that other countries are going ahead with the next generation hydrogen cells, or a nickel titanium battery, or some kind of wind platform that floats and you can reposition where you want when you want to go into a port. That's us. I remember in the 60s or the 70s when a friend of mine developed magnetic force fields for trains, and he could have them levitate over the force field and go 500 miles an hour. And what did Fairchild Grumman do? They gave the technology away. The same like we did for the Concorde. It was our development. So to me, the future lies with research and development. It relies on the truth, and it relies on science and technology. We're the inventors of the internet. We also are doing all the research and development for the mRNA virus. We should continue on that path and drop the misinformation. It just divides us, and it makes people ashamed to speak up for truth and what it is the American way. All of us together, linking hands. In New York City, we must have what, 165, maybe 180 different nationalities? We mostly get along. There's no reason to not continue on that path. But we do have to do what's necessary and appropriate to survive. Get vaccinated, look at your cities and your towns, figure out what you need to be connected, whether it's Wi-Fi or transportation, and support those bills with all your heart and soul. We've got to be in the 21st century, and we got to do it with comfort for everybody. Can't have folks burning up and not having water and not able to breathe the air or exist in the heat. So I bring you truth. Myths, misinformation, it's okay if it's in fairy tales and a little science fiction, but not here in the present when we have to survive and thrive. Thank you for listening. See you next week. Bye now.